Hello, my name is Frank Jensen. I'm the third generation in engineering practice Søren in Aarhus in Denmark. We do bespoke engineered buildings. Regenerative buildings takes its start from regenerative in the biological world, which means to regenerate something, to heal something. And we believe regenerative buildings are buildings that, for example, you take up more CO2 than they emit when they're built, but also contribute towards biodiversity, but also health for humans, both mental and physical health. And then also being inspired by nature, it also means how is it you see buildings as part of a living system, which means that how is it adapts into the various systems, the social systems, the economic system, and so forth around the buildings. And it's really a quite different way of trying to look at buildings, which are normally seen as an entity in its own way.
And are there some kind of measurements to measure the impact of generative buildings?
I think they're still being formulated. It's still a very novel practice, and therefore many design practices, but also researchers are working on trying to figure out what exactly are the measuring points. We talk about what we call break-even points, where we stop doing harm to nature, and then beyond that, what we call positive ambitions or positive pursuits, where we then do something positive for the environment and the people in and around the buildings.
Can you talk about the societal side, how it affects the humans living in them?
Unfortunately, many of the buildings we design today is not very fit for their purpose, really. And in ways where we're not really making people more healthy, but unfortunately we're making them unhealthy. But it also goes for the mental health inside buildings, that many of them we have loneliness, and I think we need to open up to ways we can design and build buildings which are basically better for both mental and physical health of humans.
Do we have enough skills in Denmark to go generative?
I don't think we'll ever have enough skills. I think everything, particularly when you're working on something which is new and novel, it's a lot about building collaborative environments with other stakeholders, and how is it you tap into both research but also practitioners around the world. And not just locally, but really globally. And then in terms of resources, which is human resources, which is basically the capability to do the work, then of course I think most engineering practices are challenged by finding enough people to do the work. And you have a role as a practice to kind of expand the people you take in and teaching them how to work as engineers or in the built environments. I think that's something we just all have to step up and do. There's plenty of people out there that doesn't have the jobs or the skills that they could have, and therefore I think we just need to step into that as well.
What are some of the typical challenges these engineers will meet when they want to create a generative building?
Well, some of the challenges, of course, is perception. Regulation is a big stumbling block. I'm not fully convinced that is the case. I think many things you can be allowed to do if you just ask in the right way and pose the right questions. But also, we have systems in and around how we build buildings, which makes it very complicated. How is it we run projects and project management, and I think some of those are also challenges where we need to somehow take a step back and think, are we having the right processes, or have we made things slightly too complicated for what we're actually trying to achieve? We spend a lot of hours just writing, texting, memos, whatever, rather than actually designing the buildings.
What can lawmakers do?
I think, first of all, they can set the stage for a discourse where we then discuss where should we go. I think right now it happens on kind of small groups, niche, individual levels, and there are some initiatives which have been taken where you try to form broader coalitions, but it's really, somehow it's not led from the top. It's not an open invitation saying, what do you think we could do differently? But then after the discourse, we could then say, and they can help us in how is we then formulate what we want into regulations that make sense. But I think there's definitely a role for them to help guide us as the built environment towards better regulations. And I don't think we need to fool ourselves. It's us writing the regulations and they then approve them. And I think we need to have agency towards that and take upon ourselves to work towards better regulations.
Can you think of progressive policies here?
Well, there's of course some nations where you don't have that many regulations yet. I could say then that you have a broader kind of approach to how to design a building. There's not that many things you have to fit in, so the design space is bigger. But then there's also examples such as Germany, which allows new types of materials to be used in up to 3 buildings before they have to get all the approvals. So you can kind of take in kind of new ideas and old ways of doing stuff, and I think you can open up without it being too experimental and too risky. There's definitely ways you can take in new ideas and concepts into consideration.
So what kind of advancement and trends do you foresee in the field of generative buildings in the coming years?
I think we'll see there's going to be a lot of innovation in the building materials we use. How is we make them more, maybe not grown, but more biogenic? How do we get inspired by how nature puts atoms together into new materials? Also going to see how is it we work towards materials and systems where we create more energy than we use, that we suck up more CO2 than we emit, and so forth. So I think we're going to see a whole range of new systems, and then we're particularly, of course, going to see a growth in how we use data, both to design buildings and construct buildings, and particularly how to run buildings afterwards. How is it we see buildings that can then adapt to the actual use? So that's going to come into play as well.